Well, I would say, I started out, I got a degree, BS in criminal justice. I went through a phase where, I was working for someone. Um, I love what I did, but my vision was really to leave a legacy for my family, and I really felt like entrepreneurship was the gateway to that legacy. Well, I was a football player. I came here on a football scholarship, graduated in 1985, went on to get a job with the Department of Corrections. I ended up getting married to a young lady that was also a cheerleader. I had a passion for reading, and I decided to open a bookstore. Closed that bookstore, then had a general toil company, and then had a vending machine company, which translated into a security company. I love reading. That's my passion, reading. And so I would always go to stores looking for black literature to read. At the time, there were only one Afro-American bookstore in the city, which was on 13th Street. I would go in there, and a lot of times I would find things that I wanted, and sometimes I wouldn't. And so I came up with this brilliant idea that I wanted to open up a bookstore. And that bookstore, I named it Deshaun Afrocentric Books and Gifts, which was located on 13th and Woodlawn. When people told me that no one would give me a loan for a bookstore, I ended up getting a loan from Commerce Bank for $50,000, which I soon realized that wasn't really enough to sustain a bookstore at the time. I didn't have a business degree. I hadn't participated in any business classes, and so it became a deal where I had to educate myself. And so I think that the most important part of it is really understanding those numbers and where those numbers take you, because the numbers tell the truth when it comes to running a business. I was in the SBA 8A program. That program allows you to participate in contracts that are only set aside for 8A companies. At that time, I wasn't doing very much business in terms of the vending machine company on the government level, and that's the level that I wanted to be on. So I decided, after a suggestion from one of my colleagues, why don't you try the security business? Does a lot of work with security. There weren't any security companies that were in the 8A program that was in the city or in the state of Kansas at the time, or in this region. And so I thought that was a pretty good transition. And for me, being in law enforcement, having been through the Drug Enforcement Administration, and being an agent and going through the FBI Academy, I knew that part of the business. And so I made a transition from the vending machine to the security company. And I just kept the name. I kept the name because most people were familiar with Ventec Enterprise, LLC. The federal government didn't really care or wasn't concerned about what the name were. They were really more concerned about past performance. Well, our customer base was really local small company, cities and municipalities, and that's changed tremendously. For the most part, 95% of our work is through the federal government. And that's the largest customer base that we use. So we went transition from city and small municipalities, commercial customers, to government contracting. We have went from a one-man show, which was me, sitting out in front of Grove, working all night, 16 hours a day, in my car by myself, to right now, we've got about a little over 900 employees. Our largest contract at that time when we first got it was $311 million. At this particular date, it's $349 million. My most memorable success was we ended up getting a call from a contracting officer in Dallas, Texas. We were a very small company, probably doing less than $1 million a year, and we received this call, and I answered the call, and the guy identified himself, and he said, "Hey, we've got a potential. We've heard about your company from another contractor that you're working with. We have a potential opportunity for you, but we want to kind of vet you and see what was going on with your company and whether it was something that you were interested in." They were taking a contract out of what they call Region 6, which is Kansas, Iowa, Missouri, and Nebraska. They were taking a contract out of there, the National Biohazard Lab up in Manhattan, Kansas, which is a $1 billion facility. Well, they needed someone to guard that facility. At the time, it was just dirt. It wasn't anything there, it was just dirt. And so the amazing part about it was that, and all of a sudden we get a response from this contracting officer in Dallas about this contract that we've been trying to reach them about for the last 2 years. We would drive down to Dallas the very next day. We drove down to Dallas. We gave a presentation. By the time we got back to Wichita, we had been informed that we had received a $5 million contract. I would say that the most important things is to really understand your numbers, understand what those numbers look like when you're sitting down, writing stuff down. My most memorable failure. Well, I wouldn't call it a failure. I would call it a lesson learned. We had an opportunity to get a contract in D.C., Washington, D.C. No one told us that doing business in the Beltway was a totally different beast than doing business in the Midwest. We went down there. We had a contract that was worth $20 million over 4 years. We were performing. We thought that we were performing really, really well. And the guy came in. I had invested like $500,000 on this particular project. We'd borrowed the money from a bank in upstate New York. 2 years into this deal, the guy, one of the contracting officers that was involved in the particular deal on the other side of it, canceled the contract out of the blue. And of course, we still got $500,000 out there that we got to pay on. And so I don't call it a failure, I call it a lesson learned, how to do business in the Beltway. And DC is a totally different beast than the Midwest.